The Grand Hall of the United Earth Embassy sparkled under crystalline lights as humans and Varians gathered for what should have been a historic diplomatic meeting. Dr. Emma Gray stood near one of the tall windows, her dark blue formal uniform marking her as one of Earth's leading xenobiologists. She was busy explaining human medical advances to a group of fascinated alien scientists when she felt it, that uncomfortable sensation of being watched. Commander Tom Gray noticed it too. From across the room, he observed the tall, muscular Varian warrior who kept staring at his wife. The alien's 4 eyes never seemed to leave Emma, even when speaking to others. As Earth's military liaison, Tom had learned enough about Varian body language to recognize predatory interest when he saw it. The Varian in question was Captain Dax, his silver-scaled skin reflecting the light as he moved through the crowd with the fluid grace of a natural hunter. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, like most of his species, with the characteristic muscular build that made Varians such fearsome warriors. Fascinating, Dax's deep voice carried across the room as he approached Emma. I find it hard to believe that such a brilliant mind exists in such a delicate form. Emma kept her professional smile fixed in place. The human brain makes up for what we might lack in physical strength, Captain. Indeed. Dax moved closer, towering over her. Though I wonder why someone of your caliber would limit herself to a mate of lesser standing. The nearby conversations stopped. Tom began moving through the crowd, his combat instincts firing warning signals. He'd seen that look before, in predators sizing up prey. I don't understand your meaning, Captain, Emma said firmly, taking a step back. Dax followed, his upper set of eyes narrowing while the lower set remained fixed on her. In Varian culture, the most accomplished individuals have the right to choose their mates from the worthy. Your current arrangement seems wasteful. My marriage is not up for discussion, Captain. Emma's voice carried a sharp edge now. Several human diplomats nearby tensed, recognizing the brewing confrontation. Tom reached them just as Dax extended one clawed hand toward Emma's face. Perhaps you simply need to experience what a true warrior can. I wouldn't finish that sentence if I were you, Captain. Tom's voice was quiet but carried the weight of command. He stepped between his wife and the alien warrior, meeting all 4 of Dax's eyes without flinching. The Varian's mouth curved into what passed for a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Ah, the mate arrives. Tell me, little human, do you truly believe you deserve someone of her standing? My husband doesn't need to prove anything to you. Emma started, but Dax cut her off with a dismissive gesture. In Varian culture, we have a way of settling such disparities. Dax's voice carried across the now silent room. When a superior warrior identifies a more suitable match, they have the right to challenge. This isn't your culture, Tom said evenly. You're in a human embassy, under human diplomatic protocols. Are you refusing the challenge? Dax's voice dripped with mock concern. How disappointing. Though not unexpected from a physically inferior species. The tension in the room grew thick enough to cut. Other Varian warriors watched with interest, while human security personnel slowly moved closer to the confrontation. Tom studied the alien warrior carefully, noting the stance, the confidence, the absolute certainty of superiority in those 4 eyes. Years of military training had taught him to read opponents, and right now, he was reading one very important thing. Dax had already decided how this would end. If you wish to make a formal challenge, Tom said carefully, it should be properly filed through diplomatic channels. Unless you're planning to violate the very protocols your empire insisted upon. Dax's smile widened. Of course, we are, after all, civilized beings. He gave a slight bow to Emma. We will continue this discussion, officially. With that, he turned and walked away, his warrior's stride carrying him through the parting crowd. Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Tom. I know, he said quietly, watching Dax's retreating form. This isn't over. Around them, the diplomatic reception tried to return to normal, but the damage was done. First contact had just taken a very dangerous turn, and everyone in the room knew it. The morning after the reception, the United Earth Embassy buzzed with activity. In the main conference room, holographic displays showed varying legal texts floating in the air, while human and alien diplomats argued in increasingly heated tones. Tom Gray stood at the window, watching the alien ships hovering in Earth's orbit. Their sleek, predatory designs matched their creator's nature perfectly. Behind him, Emma paced the room, her boots clicking against the polished floor. "This is absurd," she said, stopping to face the assembled diplomats. "You can't seriously be considering this challenge as legitimate." The Varian ambassador, a tall female named Keel, spread her four-fingered hands. "Captain Dax has filed his challenge according to our most ancient laws. To deny him would be to deny the very foundation of our culture." "Your culture doesn't get to override human rights," Emma shot back. She turned to the human representatives. "Tell me we're not actually entertaining this." The lead human diplomat, Director Wells, looked uncomfortable. "The situation is delicate. The Varian Empire controls most of the trading routes we need for our colony expansion. We can't afford a diplomatic incident." Tom finally turned from the window. "So you're saying I have to fight him?" "No one is saying that," Director Wells began, but Keel interrupted. "Actually, yes. By our laws, when a challenge is issued, the current mate must either forfeit their claim or prove their worth through combat." The Varian ambassador's expression showed what might have been pity. "Though in this case, given the obvious physical differences, a forfeit would be understandable." Emma slammed her hand on the conference table. "I am not a prize to be won." "Of course not," Keel said smoothly. "You are a valued scientist whose talents would be better served with a more suitable protector." Tom watched the exchange silently, his military training helping him maintain a calm exterior while his mind raced. He'd seen footage of Varian warriors in combat. They were faster, stronger, and had natural armor that human weapons struggled to penetrate. In a straight fight, the odds weren't just against him, they were practically impossible. "What exactly does this challenge entail?" he asked, drawing everyone's attention. Keel activated a holographic display showing a traditional Varian combat arena. "The challenge is typically fought in our sacred arenas on the homeworld. However, given the circumstances, we would allow it to take place here on Earth. And the rules. Combat continues until one party yields or is unable to continue." Keel's upper eyes blinked. "Death is discouraged in modern challenges, but accidents do happen." Emma moved to Tom's side, gripping his arm. "This is insane. You can't seriously be considering this." He covered her hand with his own, still studying the holographic arena. "What if I win?" The room fell silent. Then, surprisingly, Keel laughed, a harsh, clicking sound. "If by some miracle you were to win, the challenge would be settled permanently. Captain Dax would be honor-bound to never pursue the matter again. And I get to set the location?" Tom asked. "Within reason," Keel replied. "The arena must be suitable for combat and allow for observers." Tom straightened to his full height, still a foot shorter than the Varian ambassador. "Then I accept the challenge." "Tom, no." Emma's grip tightened. "But," he continued, "since this is taking place on Earth, we'll use human combat protocols." Keel's four eyes blinked in sequence. "You wish to add conditions to a traditional challenge. You're already modifying tradition by allowing it to take place off-world," Tom pointed out. "Unless you're saying Varian warriors can only fight under their own rules." The barb struck home. Keel's scales rippled with barely contained irritation. "Very well. Present your terms. I'll have them drafted within the hour." Tom turned to Emma, whose face showed a mix of anger and fear. "Trust me," he whispered. "I have a plan." As they left the conference room, they passed Captain Dax in the hallway. The Varian warrior's four eyes tracked them, his mouth curved in that predatory smile. "I look forward to our dance, little human," Dax called after them. "I promise to make it quick." Tom didn't respond, but his grip on Emma's hand tightened. The warrior thought this would be easy prey. Tom intended to show him just how wrong he was. The underground military training facility hummed with activity as Tom Gray studied the holographic display of Varian anatomy. 3 days had passed since accepting the challenge, and he hadn't wasted a single minute. "Show me the vision centers again," he said to Emma, who stood at the control panel. The hologram shifted, highlighting the complex 4-eye neural network in the Varian skull. "Their visual processing is different from ours," Emma explained, her scientific focus temporarily overriding her worry. "The upper eyes handle long distance and motion tracking, while the lower pair manages close detail and color perception." Tom walked around the hologram, memorizing every detail. "And you're sure about the light sensitivity?" "Positive. Their home world has a dimmer sun than ours. Their eyes adapt well to darkness, but sudden bright lights cause temporary neural confusion because all 4 eyes try to adjust independently." In the corner of the training room, a team of engineers worked on modifying standard military equipment. The sound of welding and mechanical adjustments filled the air. "How's the suit coming?" Tom called out. The lead engineer looked up from his work. "It's not pretty, but it'll do what you need. Though I still think you're crazy for trying this." Tom managed a grim smile. "Crazy might be our only advantage." Emma walked over to him, her face showing the strain of the past few days. "The Varians are releasing combat footage of Dax. You should see this." The main screen lit up with images of the alien warrior in various battles. His movements were blindingly fast, his natural armor deflecting most attacks. In one clip, he lifted an opponent twice his size and threw them across an arena. "They're trying to intimidate you," Emma said softly. "Good." Tom's eyes never left the screen. "That means they're worried." "They should be," a new voice said. Director Wells entered the training room, carrying a datapad. "Your opponent just reviewed the modified combat rules. He's not happy." Tom nodded. "Did he accept them?" His pride wouldn't let him refuse. "But there's something else." Wells handed over the pad. "We've been analyzing Varian combat patterns. They're incredibly effective fighters, but they're predictable." Tom finished, scanning the data. "They rely on their physical advantages. No need for complex strategies when you can overpower most opponents." Emma studied the combat footage again. "Their movements, they're almost ritualistic, like they're following a script." "Exactly." Tom handed the pad back. "They've been the dominant species in their region of space for so long, they've stopped innovating. Everything is tradition, ceremony, and showing off their strength." "And how exactly does that help you?" Emma demanded. "He's still twice your size and 3 times stronger." Tom walked over to the engineers and picked up what looked like a modified combat helmet. "Because while they've been relying on strength, we humans have been finding ways to defeat stronger opponents for our entire history." He put on the helmet, checking its systems. "We're going to give him exactly what he expects, right up until we don't." The next few hours were spent in intense practice. Tom worked with combat simulators programmed with Varian movement patterns, while Emma and the engineers fine-tuned their equipment. Every few minutes, a new piece of data about Varian biology or combat techniques would arrive from the research team. As evening approached, Emma found Tom sitting alone in the facility's observation room, watching Earth's sunset through the reinforced windows. "The challenge is tomorrow," she said, sitting beside him. "I know. If you lose, I won't." He turned to face her, his expression determined. "You know why?" Emma shook her head. "Because that arrogant warrior made 3 mistakes. First, he underestimated humans. Second, he threatened my wife." Tom stood up, checking his modified combat gear one last time. "And third, he gave me time to prepare." Outside, the sun finally set, casting the room in shadows. Tomorrow, an alien warrior would learn why challenging a human defender was a dangerous mistake. But for now, in the growing darkness, A husband and wife sat together, watching the stars appear in the evening sky, each lost in their own thoughts about the battle to come. Dawn broke over the military training facility as vehicles arrived carrying observers from both Earth and the Varian Empire. The chosen battlefield was an enclosed arena, specially modified for the day's event. High above, massive screens showed close-up views of the combat area for the gathered audience. Tom Gray stood in the preparation room, making final adjustments to his combat suit. It looked deceptively simple, matte black with minimal armor plating. Nothing like the elaborate battle gear Varians typically wore. "Final systems check," Emma said, running diagnostics on a tablet. "Neural interface is stable. Environmental controls operating at optimal levels." She paused, looking at her husband. "Are you sure about this setup?" Tom tested his range of motion. "The best trap is one where the prey walks in willingly." A knock at the door interrupted them. Director Wells entered, looking tense. "The Varians are protesting your choice of arena again." "Let them," Tom replied calmly. "The rules were clear. My choice of location, as long as it allows for combat and observation. They're calling it an insult to tradition." "Good." Tom smiled grimly. "Let them focus on their wounded pride. It'll make this easier." The arena itself was unlike anything the Varians had ever seen for a challenge fight. Instead of the traditional open combat ground, Tom had designed a complex environment with varying levels, multiple light sources, and several different terrain types. Mist generators created patches of low visibility, while the walls could shift position at random intervals. Captain Dax's voice boomed through the facility's speakers. "Is this how humans fight? Hiding behind tricks and obstacles." Tom activated his helmet's comm system. "This is how humans win." The audience gathered in protected observation areas. Through the reinforced windows, Emma could see Varian warriors watching with barely concealed contempt. Beside them, human military observers sat with carefully neutral expressions. "Combat protocols are locked in," an official announced. "Arena configuration randomization is active. Competitors, take your positions." Tom walked toward the arena entrance. Emma caught his arm. "Tom." He turned and kissed her quickly. "Trust the plan." The arena doors opened with a hydraulic hiss. Tom stepped into the misty environment, his suit's sensors already mapping the constantly changing layout. Across the arena, Captain Dax entered, his massive form made even more imposing by traditional Varian battle armor. "Last chance to forfeit, little human," Dax called out, his four eyes scanning the arena with obvious disdain. "This mockery of combat does you no credit." Tom didn't respond. Instead, he pressed a sequence on his wrist control. Throughout the arena, lights dimmed slightly. "Commence combat in 10 seconds, the announcer's voice echoed. Dax dropped into a combat stance, his natural armor plates flexing. "I will try to leave you mostly intact. Your mate should at least remember you with some dignity." 5 seconds. Tom took a deep breath, remembering every detail of Varian biology they'd studied, every weakness, every predictable pattern. "Combat begins now." Dax moved with explosive speed, covering half the arena in seconds. His charge was perfect, aggressive, designed to end the fight quickly. Exactly as every piece of combat footage had shown. It was exactly what Tom had planned for. At the last possible moment, Tom triggered his first surprise. Hidden lights in the floor activated, strobing in a precise pattern. Dax's four eyes tried to adjust independently, causing momentary disorientation. The Varian warrior's charge missed by inches. "Coward," Dax roared, spinning with remarkable agility. "Face me properly." "Why?" Tom's voice came from somewhere in the mist. "Because that's tradition." The arena walls shifted, changing the battlefield layout. Tom had memorized the patterns, while Dax had dismissed them as irrelevant. The human disappeared into the changing maze, leaving the frustrated warrior to stalk through mist and shadows. From the observation area, Emma watched the screens intently. The Varian observers were muttering angrily about dishonorable tactics, But she could see what was really happening. Tom wasn't running. He was setting up the next phase of his plan. The real fight was about to begin. Dax stalked through the misty arena, his frustration growing with each passing minute. The fog curled around his massive form as he searched for his elusive opponent. Suddenly, a small object bounced near his feet. Before his combat instincts could react, it erupted in a brilliant flash. Arg! The Varian warrior's 4 eyes struggled to readjust, each operating independently and sending conflicting signals to his brain. Through the disorientation, he heard Tom's voice. "You know what humans learned early in our history." A shadow moved to Dax's left. "The biggest predator isn't always the most successful." Dax swung his armored fist, hitting nothing but mist. His upper eyes were still trying to compensate for the flash, while his lower ones searched for movement. "We learned to hunt creatures many times our size," Tom continued, his voice echoing from a different direction. "Not with strength, but with intelligence. Face me, coward." Dax roared, his patience shattering. "This is not combat. This is the scurrying of prey." A soft chuckle answered him. "See, that's exactly what those ancient creatures thought too." Dax charged toward the voice, but the arena walls shifted again. He slammed into one, his natural armor absorbing the impact, but leaving him momentarily stunned. In that instant, Tom struck. The human darted in from behind, targeting specific points on Dax's armor, spots where Emma's research had shown neural clusters lay beneath. His strikes weren't powerful enough to hurt the Varian warrior, but they didn't need to be. Each hit sent conflicting sensory signals through Dax's nervous system. Dax spun, faster than any human could move, but Tom was already gone. The mist swirled in his wake. "Stop this dancing," Dax bellowed. "You only delay the inevitable." "Maybe." Tom's voice came from somewhere above. "But you're breathing harder now. How's your stamina in Earth's gravity?" Dax hadn't noticed it before, but he was indeed breathing more heavily. The human gravity, slightly stronger than his homeworld's, was taking its toll. The constant shifting of his eyes to compensate for the strobing lights and mist was draining his energy faster than normal. In the observation area, Emma watched the vital signs of both combatants. Tom's were elevated but steady. He was pacing himself. Dax's readings showed increasing stress. "Remarkable," one of the human military observers muttered. "He's using everything against him. Gravity, light, sensory overload, terrain. Death by 1,000 cuts." The Varian observers were no longer showing contempt. Some looked concerned. Back in the arena, Tom continued his strategy. Each time Dax began to adjust to one type of disorientation, Tom would introduce another. Sonic pulses at frequencies that disrupted Varian inner ear balance. Temperature changes that confused their heat-sensing abilities. Every weakness they'd discovered was being exploited. "Your mate deserves a true warrior," Dax shouted, his movements becoming less coordinated. "Not a trickster who won't fight honorably." Tom appeared briefly on a higher platform. "My wife deserves someone who uses every advantage to protect her. Honor doesn't mean fighting stupidly." Enraged, Dax leaped at the platform with his species' incredible strength. But Tom had already triggered another wall shift. The Varian warrior found himself off balance, in midair, with nowhere to land. That's when Tom made his decisive move. He dropped from above, using Dax's own momentum and Earth's stronger gravity. His modified combat suit enhanced his strength just enough for what came next. As they both fell, Tom locked Dax in a hold that used the Varian's own armor plates against him, binding neural clusters in a way that sent overwhelming sensory signals to his brain. They hit the ground hard. Dax tried to stand but found his limbs wouldn't coordinate properly. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, unable to focus. Tom stood over him, barely winded. "Do you yield?" The arena fell silent, waiting for the Varian warrior's response. The fight wasn't over yet, but for the first time, everyone watching realized it soon would be, and not the way they'd expected. Dax struggled to stand, his massive form swaying unsteadily. The combination of sensory overload, Earth's gravity, and Tom's calculated strikes had left the mighty Varian warrior in a state his species rarely experienced: vulnerability. This is not how warriors fight, Dax gasped, his four eyes still struggling to focus properly. Tom circled him calmly, maintaining the perfect distance. Actually, this is exactly how warriors fight. The smart ones, anyway. He triggered another set of strobing lights, making Dax stumble. You know what your biggest mistake was? Silence. Dax lunged forward, but his movements were sluggish. Tom easily sidestepped him. Your mistake was assuming that because we're physically weaker, we're inferior warriors. Tom's voice was steady, even as he continued his calculated assault. Humans have been fighting stronger opponents since we first picked up stones to hunt. From the observation area, Emma watched as her husband systematically dismantled the alien warriors' defenses. The Varian observers had fallen completely silent, their earlier contempt replaced by something that looked remarkably like fear. Dax tried to activate his armor's enhanced combat systems, but nothing responded. The neural disruption from Tom's attacks had compromised his connection to the suit. You had every advantage, Tom continued, landing another precise strike at a neural cluster. Strength, speed, natural armor. But you never asked yourself why humans, despite being physically weaker, managed to become a spacefaring civilization. Dax's legs buckled. He dropped to one knee, his breathing labored. What have you done to me? Science, strategy, adaptation. Tom listed off each word like he was giving a lecture. Everything you dismissed as beneath a true warrior. Your own arrogance blinded you. The arena's mist began to clear, revealing the full extent of Tom's victory to all observers. The mighty Varian captain, who had entered the arena expecting an easy triumph, was now struggling just to remain conscious. Your mate, Dax managed to say. She helped you plan this. Of course she did. Tom's voice hardened. That's another thing you never understood. We're partners, her intelligence and my tactics working together. That's what makes humans formidable. Emma felt pride swell in her chest. This wasn't just a victory in combat. It was a demonstration of everything that made humanity dangerous. Not their strength, but their ability to analyze, adapt, and overcome. Dax made one final attempt to stand. His legs gave out completely, and he crashed to the arena floor. His four eyes, finally able to focus, looked up at Tom with something new. Respect. The Varian warrior, seemed to struggle with the words. I yield. The announcement echoed through the facility. In the observation area, the Varian diplomats exchanged worried glances. This wasn't supposed to happen. Their warrior, their champion, had just been defeated not by superior strength, but by superior strategy. Tom deactivated his combat systems and approached Dax. The challenge is over. You will respect my marriage and never threaten my wife again. By our laws, I am bound to this oath, Dax confirmed, his voice weak but formal. Medical teams entered the arena, both human and Varian, to attend to the fallen warrior. As they helped Dax to his feet, he turned to Tom one last time. We were wrong about humans, he admitted. You are not weak. You are something else entirely. Tom watched as they carried Dax away, then turned to see Emma running toward him. She threw her arms around him, and he held her tight. That, she said with a mixture of relief and pride, was the most brilliant application of xenobiology I've ever seen. Tom smiled. I had a good teacher. Above them, on the observation deck, the Varian ambassador was already drafting urgent messages to their homeworld. Today's event would require a significant reassessment of human capabilities. They had dismissed humans as physically inferior, only to discover that this made them more, not less, dangerous. The message was clear: underestimate humans at your own risk. 1 week after the challenge, the United Earth Embassy hosted another diplomatic gathering. This time, the atmosphere was markedly different. Where once there had been dismissive glances from Varian warriors, now there were careful, assessing looks. Tom and Emma Gray stood together near the same window where the challenge had begun. This time, no one dared to approach them uninvited. The Varian military has requested access to the combat footage. Director Wells informed them, joining their conversation. Apparently, they're implementing new training protocols based on the fight. Emma smiled. They're learning. That's more than I expected. Learning is what happens when pride takes a hard fall, Tom observed, watching a group of Varian warriors discussing something with human military officers. Have they responded to our new diplomatic proposals? Wells nodded. The trade route access has been approved, and they're open to joint military exercises. Your victory opened more doors than a year of negotiations. Across the room, Ambassador Keel approached their group, her posture more respectful than before. Commander Gray, Dr. Gray, might I have a moment? Of course, Ambassador, Emma replied. The High Command has reviewed the challenge footage extensively, Keel began. They have revised several of our traditional combat doctrines as a result. It seems we had become too reliant on our natural advantages. Tom nodded. Strength is important, but it's not everything. Indeed. Keel's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Captain Dax has requested permission to study human military tactics, if you would be willing to serve as an instructor. I think that could be arranged, Tom said, provided certain diplomatic assurances remain in place. Of course. Keel turned to Emma. And Dr. Gray, your research on Varian biology was impressively thorough. Our medical academy would be honored to collaborate with you on future studies. Emma's professional interest was immediately piqued. I would welcome that opportunity. As they discussed the details, more diplomats and officers from both species joined their conversation. The rigid separation that had marked previous gatherings was dissolving, replaced by genuine curiosity and respect. Near the end of the evening, a familiar figure appeared. Captain Dax, still showing signs of recovery, approached Tom and Emma. The room quieted, watching the interaction. Commander Gray, Dax said formally, I owe you an apology. And you, Dr. Gray. He bowed slightly, a gesture he would never have considered before. I mistook physical capability for warrior spirit. I was wrong. Apology accepted, Tom replied. Sometimes the best lessons come from defeat. Dax nodded. In our history, we dominated through strength alone. We forgot that true warriors must adapt, must think. He straightened to his full height. Humans reminded us of this. It is a lesson we needed. As Dax moved away, Emma squeezed Tom's hand. You didn't just win a fight, she whispered. You changed their entire perspective on humanity. We did, Tom corrected her. Your research, my tactics, just like always. Outside the embassy windows, Earth's sun was setting. The Varian ships in orbit no longer looked as threatening as they once had. Instead, they seemed like a reminder of how first impressions could be wrong, and how understanding could grow from conflict. Director Wells raised his glass in a toast. To new beginnings and better understanding between our species. The gathered diplomats, human and Varian alike, joined in. The challenge that had begun as a threat to human dignity had transformed into an opportunity for growth on both sides. As the evening wound down, Tom and Emma stood together, watching the stars appear. A Varian saying, roughly translated, stated that true wisdom comes from recognizing one's misconceptions. Today, 2 species had learned that lesson together. Think they'll ever try something like that again? Emma asked. Tom smiled. If they do, they'll be a lot more careful about challenging humans. He looked at his wife. We might not be the strongest, but we're definitely not the weakest. No, Emma agreed, watching the mixed groups of humans and Varians engaging in animated discussions. We're just human, and sometimes that's more than enough. The end.